So this is where we start everything here, right? So we call this the foundations, right? So foundations of systematic trading. We're not going to talk about anything else. We're going to be only talking about the way that we trade, the way this community is going to be built based on certain few principles, and what are the trading tools that we require, and the system. So today's session we'll be discussing more about intraday and around the DTR, right? Any kind of option buying, option selling, and even something like, if you want to trade only with cash or futures in stocks, we'll be discussing certain systems around that. And again, this is not something new, it's already been discussed inside, but we will be giving you overview of, I'll be giving you overview of things that really matters. And you can even start here, start watching this session or this recording. If you're watching it later, you can get started only with this information. So that is the whole idea of this session, right? So again, do not underestimate whatever you learn here, right? This exact journey, exact process, the exact systems, people have made use of it. Just now before this, you saw the results of people, the kind of results people have got. So it is with the same kind of tools, right? It is with the same tools. It is with the same set of knowledge. Without anything extra, people are getting results, right? So please do not underestimate it. The only thing that is going to stop you from doing this is not taking action. The only thing that is going to stop you is blaming others, right? The only thing that is going to stop you is your internal factor. So let's start from there, because that is what is the major factor that is going to stop you from getting results, right? So let's call this 7 pillars of systematic trading, right? So no matter what kind of systems we trade, right? It might be trend following, mean reversion, or simply scalping, but anything around systematic trading, we need to understand these basic things first, right? I'm going to be switching off the recording, the chat box for a minute till we complete this, right? So let's do that. Okay, so the 7 pillars of systematic trading is, let's see one by one, right? So again, it does not, if we go directly into the systems, it does not serve the purpose, right? Fundamentally, whatever we do here, whatever systems that we trade, or whatever questions that come in your mind, the self-doubts or anything that comes across in your mind at a later stage, just understand that, have I gone through these 7 things? And if I really understand what are these 7 things, and after that, if you have any question, right, then it is again, it's like again going back to the drawing room or going back to the board and again watching or looking back at this. And if you have a pen and paper, please note this down, because this is going to be something that is going to be important, because we set this mind first, and it is going to be a easy journey afterwards, right? So the pillar number 1 is, trading is a serious business. It is a legitimate business. We are not talking about anything else here. It is not a get rich quick scheme. It is not something that we can dabble with and make money, right? It is not a gig. It is not something that we can do in part-time and look to make full-time income or wealth. But if we can consider this as a serious business, we can be making wealth or making some income gradually on the side. There are a lot of ways to even simplify this and automate this, right? So it's not required that you have to be full-time trader, but we need to approach this as a business, right? As a full-time business, how you do a business. You wouldn't, somebody wouldn't just go and invest, say, some 50 lakhs and expect 10, 20 lakhs a month out of that business, right? So they do their numbers and they do their math, right? They have the right kind of expectations when they start a business. But when it comes to trading, people have huge expectations, right? So, they see something like this, last year, Bitcoin maybe moved 10x or 8x, right? So if I invested 50 lakhs, now I'd be sitting on 5 crores. That is exactly not trading. That is luck, right? So again, there are a few factors about luck also that we'll be discussing here. Systematically we can get that luck as well. But when we start out, we need to have the right kind of mindset, and we need to have the right kind of expectation out of this business. So this can be a good business, and this can be a very serious and a very, very wildly profitable business if we understand the numbers, right? So just as usual, how a business will operate. The first thing is that we need to understand the numbers of the business, and we need to have an edge or an advantage over the others, or advantage over our peers, our counterparts in the same businesses, right? So we need to have a little advantage, and we need to understand the numbers behind that business, so that we can build a business that can survive for a very long time, right? So what are the numbers that we need to understand here? Of course, the first thing is the risk reward, right? The risk reward is nothing but how much you're going to be betting, how much you're going to be willing to lose to get that reward, right? Because without loss or without sacrifice, without losses, there is not going to be any reward, profit, money, whatever we're talking about here, right? So the reward part of this game in business or in life or in trading, it is always going to come with some kind of a sacrifice, a loss, or something that we call as a risk, right? So risk, what is the kind of risk we are taking to get that reward, right? So this is the number that we need to have in our mind, right? Or we need to have a solid number based on backtest, or we need to have a solid number based on the kind of expectations that we want to base this business on. And it has always has to be coupled with the winning rates, right? Risk reward as a separate identifier, it is not going to be of much use, right? So you can have a very good system with 90% success rate, right? But if the risk reward is very, very low, right? So even that is not going to be making much of sense, right? So to understand that, if you can just look at this chart, right? If you can just look at this chart, the risk reward here, usually, these are the systems that we should not be even looking at, right? So we will be looking at something like this minimum of 1:1. If you have to have a system of a risk reward of 1:1, right? 1:1, we need to have a winning rate of at least 50% for us to be breaking even, right? So our point is to be making profit. So for break even, we need to have a winning rate of at least 50%, right? And if this is where the zone gets better, right? 1:2 is a very good kind of a risk reward, right? 1:2 is always a very good kind of risk reward. In that kind of a risk reward, you just need a break even of 33%, right? 33% any system can make, right? Any good, with the basic logic, right? Any system that makes little sense will be able to give you a success rate of 33%. So 1:2 with the 33% is kind of a sweet spot here, right? So now again, more than that, if we go, in terms of option buying, you can even look at something like 1:3, where only if you win 25% of the times, right? If you win only 25% of the time, still you could be making money, right? And 1:5 and 1:10, and all of this is going deep into investing zone, right? So in investing, you could be looking at something like 1:3, 1:5, and all that. But when it comes to trading, 1:1, 1:2, and 1:3, right? This is where we should be looking at. So what this suggests is that you could be making money not with a success rate of 70% or 80%. All that you need is a valid system that can give you a positive edge by winning only about 50 to 25 to 50% of the times, right? So 25 to 50% of the times winning is very, very good enough, right? So that is something that we need to understand. And the more we move towards the downside, right? The more we move towards the downside, psychologically it is going to be difficult for us to trade, right? So to trade a system with 25% success rate, it is going to take a lot of patience and a lot of discipline to be doing that. And if you're going deep into this, right? So 1:5, 1:10, 1:50, these are the kind of systems where, we invest money and forget about it, basically forget about it, right? So there will be 4 or 5 stocks that is going to give you 1:10 and all that. So we literally need to have only a winning rate of 9%, right? 9% is generally what happens. If you go and buy a bunch of 10 stocks at any given moment and hold on for 10 days, your winning rate will be much more than 9%. And one of it, right, 3 or 4 of those stocks will move 10 times. And that is how this can be managed as well, right? So without consciously making a plan, this is comes into that investing zone, right? But when it comes to trading, this is where we are going to be looking at. And all that we need is not that magic system that is going to give us 90% or 80% success rate, right? So all that we need to have is a decent, half decent, right? So when we say half decent, that means 50% of the times if it wins, that is good enough, right? So this is the first thing that we need to keep in mind. This when we do this, right? So whenever we do this number is going to be in our favor, right? This number is going to be in our favor. And other numbers that we need to have just need to keep in mind is the maximum drawdown of any kind of system, right? What is the consecutive losses that system has made over time, whatever your period of back test is, right? What is the maximum loss that is made it over a period of time, the cumulative losses that we're talking about, right? The downside of it, from the highest peak, how much of it is gone down, is something, that number that we need to also to keep in mind, or that is also something that is used for us to be coming up with something called as cushion or the margin that is required. So if we understand all of these numbers, right? So if we once we understand these numbers, all that we need to have is that edge, right? How can we generate that 50% of success rate? How can we have a system with just about 1 is to 1.5 and 50% or 60% success rate, and we are sitting on a gold mine, right? So we do not really need anything more than that. All that we need to do is the next thing that we need to have an edge is the execution edge, right? A technical edge is nothing but what is the system that it is following, right? What is the fundamental of the fundamental logic of that particular system? If it is trend following, breakouts, or theta decay, right? We need to have an edge on that as well, right? So those are the kind of systems that should not fade away. Those are the kind of systems that is not something that is a fad, recent fad, right? So recent fad is something like, cryptocurrencies. If you're going to be backtesting a system on cryptocurrencies, right? So you would see that every short trade would be a loss and only long trades are very profitable, right? Because it's seen only the one side of the market or one side of the phase, right? It's just been going up, right? In the recent past. But if you are going to be looking at some systems that are, breakout of the previous day or breakout of the previous week or 52-week breakouts and all of these systems, that system should have tested the time, right? So maybe it is open range breakout or previous week's breakout, previous month's breakout. Those are the things that should not fade away, right? So that is the technical edge that we need to have in that system. And in case of ours, most of our systems, there are only two kind of systems we primarily follow. That one first is that you're going to be following trend following systems, right? Trend following or breakouts of certain levels, right? And these are the things that goes on forever and it's been working for a very long time, right? So we have a technical edge on that. And also in form of option selling, we make use of our fundamental idea is the theta decay, right? So theta decay again is something that is going to be there till options are going to be there traded, right? So theta decay is part of options, so it is always going to be there and always going to be decayed, and we need to just systematically find a way to capture that, right? So technically we have an edge, and we need to also have an edge on the execution side, right? So maybe you're trading using algorithms, or even if you're trading manually, you need to have that edge where you do not make any kind of errors, right? We need to have that advantage, and major part is going to be this internal edge, right? So how we are going to be managing our internals, how are we going to be managing our emotions, the drawdowns, the depressions, and all that, right? So this is how we're going to be having an edge over the other 95% of the people, right? This can be done by anybody else, right? Only this is where the rubber meets the road, right? So this is where we make that huge difference between the 95% of the people and the 5% of the people, where we develop an internal edge, where we resist certain things like booking profits early and all these emotional things that happen, right? We need to resist that, and we need to develop a strong skin and a thick skin so that we go by the systems, and the decision making is entirely done by the systems, and we're not going to be tinkering with that, right? So internal edge is what our most focus is on, right? So basically we can consider this as a business only if we understand all the numbers around this, and we need to establish an edge, right? Without an edge, no business is going to survive. And similarly, it is better not to compete, right? If we do not have an edge, if we do not understand the numbers, it is better not to compete at all, right? Because it's almost guaranteed that we're not going to be very successful in the long run, right? So the pillar number 2 is the power of large numbers, right? So whenever we talk about power of large numbers, the idea is this, right? So we're going to be processing the data over a long period of time on varied periods of time, right? So something like this, say consider this T3 system, right? It is the results are from the last 4 years till the time when the weekly options were introduced here, right? And the data suggests this, right? So again, when you look at this, the winning ratio is 75%. 75% of the times, no matter what, you end up winning. And when you lose, on average, you lose about 2,200. When you win about 3,700 rupees, right? So do you think that this has an edge? This system, do you think has an edge in terms of technical, in terms of, the technical part of this system is option selling, right? Option selling has an edge. And The other thing about the technical side of this is going to be on the number side, right? We have an excellent winning rate of more than 60%, right? So it's very close to 75%. And the average and the risk reward here, right? So the risk reward is almost like 1 is to 1.5, right? 1 is to 1.5, you only need about 30 to 40% of success rate, right? So still the success rate is way more. So this is how we need to derive an edge before we even start this journey, right? So when you are going into this journey, all of this power of large numbers is going to be in our favor, right? So whenever we talk about power of large numbers, we need to understand we are just not talking about data. We are talking about, it goes way beyond that, right? It validates the idea or the occurrence over a long period of time with varied circumstances. And this is the biggest part we need to understand, which is mostly not discussed, is this, that it goes way beyond the system, right? So usually, in one of the earlier webinars, or the first webinar you attended, right? So we spoke about the statistics between Australia and Bangladesh, right? Australia and Bangladesh. So when we say and go and analyze the data of the winning rates of Australian team over a long period of time, like 20 years, no, there are various different coaches, various different captains, various different fast bowlers, pace bowlers, and they've evolved and come and gone. But the data shows a certain kind of consistency, right? So what that data shows is it goes way beyond cricket, right? How many of you can agree to this, or how many of you can relate to this, that it actually goes way beyond cricket itself? It actually gives out the data of how developed the country is, or how is their infrastructure, how is their sporting system or the selection process, right? Which does not change over, I mean, it does not change just like that, right? It takes a lot to change that structure, internal structure of that sporting system in their country, right? It does not just quickly change because of margin rules, right? So that is what we need to understand. Power of large numbers is that something that has worked for very long time under various different circumstances, various different market cycles. It takes a lot to offroot that, right? That power of data, it takes a lot to happen, right? So Rome is not built in a day, right? And it is not even, it cannot be destroyed in a day as well, right? It takes a lot of time and efforts to offset that edge that the power of large number gives, right? So this is one primary thing that we need to keep in our mind, right? So it is something that we need to keep inside our mind, that we should know if we have any kind of doubts around this, right? So who are the people who use these power of large numbers, right? Amazon, right? Amazon, and they do not go by recent trends, and there's nothing called as recent, right? The way your traffic signals are built, the way, a lot of things in the government section, in the banking industry, and everything is built based on the power of large numbers. They do not go by what happens during a Diwali, and based on that, Amazon wouldn't go and stock their inventory based on what happened in the recent past, right? So see, this is the power of large numbers, right? So that is where pure gold is, and it goes way beyond our imagination. It goes deep into the fundamentals, and it gives us the whole idea of how a country operates or how something works. Now, when we talk about the power of large numbers in the stock market, right? When we talk about the power of large numbers in the stock market, right? So it goes way beyond those indicators. It goes way beyond the systems, and it understands the power of emotions in people, right? The buyers and sellers is what move the market, right? So whenever there's a buyer, somebody thinks that it is a good place to buy, and at the same time, there are a lot of people thinking that it is the best place to sell, right? So that is the power, that is the thing that happens all the while in the market, all the time in the market, right? So it goes way beyond the indicators. It goes way beyond that and understands the fundamental of the buyers and sellers, and if you have an edge in that market, right? So your idea is to be a buyer when the markets are going up, and your idea is to be a seller when the markets are going down. Is this idea valid? That is what the number is going to be telling you, right? So it goes way beyond the systems or the indicators. It goes deep into that, right? So that is something that, so we should believe in the power of large numbers as a systematic trader, as a business operator, right? So even if you're running a business, you will need to depend on data for making all these decisions, right? So that is how big companies scale up high, right? We need to understand the power of large numbers. So do not let your recency bias kick in here, right? And whatever has happened in the recent past, 1 month, 2 months, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it is all going to be averaging out over time, right? It is always going to be coming back to the mean, right? Everything in the world is going to come back to the mean, and there's no new norm that is going to be happening, right? And this is one of the other parts, even we discussed in one of the recent masterminds, is external factors, right? So there will be certain factors that are way beyond us, right? There are certain things that is way beyond us, and we need to systematically attract this part called as luck or opportunity, right? So luck, if we can define luck, right? So there is one key phrase that most people use, right? So luck is nothing but being at the right place at the right time, right? So being the right place at the right time, if you're going to be manifesting luck, right? So all that we need to do is be in the right place at the right time all the time, right? So that is the one way of looking at it, right? So instead of being at the right place at that particular time, which nobody has control on, right? So the luck is something that we cannot control, but luck is something that we can manifest, and we can get it in our life just by following something called as discipline, right? If we are going to be disciplined and doing the same thing, luck will be in our favor, right? Without we knowing it. There will be certain trades which for others would look like a lucky trade, right? Say if you're a trend follower or something, you've just gone long in this trade, right? You weren't expecting luck to be in your favor, or you weren't really thinking that it is going to go this high, right? So you were just simply plainly following the system, and finally you got lucky here, right? And if you're a discretionary trader, you got in here, that can purely call as a luck, right? So when we talk about systematic trading, luck is also going to be a part of this, right? So the time of when you enter the trade, the time you exit, and there are a lot of other factors, even we would discuss this, right? So a lot of people follow the same system, but if some of them started following the system at certain dates, or some of them started following at a later date, they will have different kind of results, right? So because again, there are things that are beyond our control, right? So both of them following the same system, same instruments, same kind of discipline, but still varied result. But there will be this nth time, right? So nth time is the time where you're going to be coming out as very profitable trader, and the luck will favor you. And if you're going to be disciplined, right? So if you're a trend follower, right, you already know about this factors called luck, but luck is something that will come, you all that very big trade. And if you're following something like simple like DTR, intraday trend following, there'll be 2 or 3 days in the month that is going to give you good results, right? So a lot of the small losses will be taken care of on those big days where there's a big trend. And being a part of the trend is, you can call it as luck, but if you are disciplined, you're going to be getting lucky more often than not, right? So to get luck in our favor, we need to be very disciplined and consistently following the system, right? So these are the major 3 things that you're going to be looking at. And other thing is that we need to protect our downside, right? We need to have a system in place where we are not firefighting, right? So again, some of you asked in the comment right now, do we do any adjustments? We do not do any kind of adjustments. Systematically, you cannot do adjustments. Whenever we talk about adjustments, whenever we talk about firefighting, that is being discretionary zone, right? So discretionary traders look for that. But for us, we protect the downside, and we say good enough, we tried, and we're going to be exiting the trade, right? We are not going to be going and firefighting, right? We have a protection on the downside, right? Whatever happens, we need to take that and look forward for the next trade. But how does this conviction come? How does this courage, or how does this thing to take losses and go back and place the trade next, right? How will it come is that if we do all of these part right, right? If you're going to be understanding this as a business, and if you understand the power of large numbers, and if you're going to be disciplined and understand that luck is going to be a little part of this, and luck favors the disciplined traders, protecting the downside, and losses are not going to be anything that is going to be your problem at all, right? So losses are going to be a part of the profits, and losses like this will make you stronger and not weaker, right? Once we understand this fundamental. So protect the downside. We are not going to be firefighting. We are just going to be taking some losses and exit the trades. And this is going to be one major key thing here, right? It's the power of associations. Okay, for this to put a thing to this perspective about the power of associations, right? So all of these things are easy to comprehend, actually, right? It is easy to comprehend, and it is first time when we look at all these things, it makes sense to us. But it is going to be difficult to put that into practice, right? It is just like that, all these famous things most people say, right? How to lose weight, how to keep your wife happy, and all of these things, right? The most difficult questions in the world are actually has very easy answers, right? How many of you agree to that, that the most difficult questions in the world have easy answers, and most of us know these answers, right? Most of us know these answers, but and they are simple answers, right? How to be happy, do not have expectations, and give more and take less, and all of these things are going to be making people happy, but it is very difficult to practice, right? So that is where the power of associations come, right? So I'm going to be talking about one association that has changed a lot of people's lives in a lot of countries, right? So not primarily, I think it's not heavily practiced in India. See, one of the worst habits, or one of those habits that is very difficult to give up, is alcoholism, right? So drinking habit is people find it very difficult to come out of it, and even people who understand that is taking away life from them, or it is affecting their family, immediate family, their health and all that, but still the answer is very simple, that do not drink. But it is very difficult for us to be following that, right? So there is one association, if some of you have heard it, it's called Alcoholics Anonymous, right? One of the very, very successful peer group system, right? And people quit all of these bad habits by associating with like-minded people, right? And this, let me tell you, this is very, very powerful thing, right? Associating yourself with like-minded people is going to give massive results, even if you do not follow any of these things, right? Of course, you have to follow all of these things, but to follow all of these things, you need to have an association with the like-minded people, right? And anywhere to break bad habits, right, or to form new habits, it is always powerful thing is that you need to be in a group of like-minded people, right? So that is the exact thing, whole idea of forming this community system, right? Where people will find it very difficult when they're alone to do this, right? So when you are in a group or a power of association, when you see people going through the same thing and achieving results, right? Your peer groups achieving results, it's going to give a lot of confidence inside us. Now, unconsciously, it is going to add a lot of consciousness inside that, right? And also the power of accountability, right? The power of accountability and the power of associations is going to have a good impact if you want to follow any kind of systematic training, something that is difficult, or something that is going against our human tendency, right? Systematic trading goes beyond our human tendency, and it is totally against our basic instincts, right? So we need to make full use of this power of association, right? So in certain communities, right? So let me tell you, I'm a part of at least two of these groups, right? Let me tell you, the first thing that anybody should do is there should not be any kind of negative vibes, right? There should not be any kind of, no, it's not totally allowed, right? So because people are trying to transform their lives, and somebody comes here to complain and having some kind of personal issues and all that, right? So that is totally not allowed in any kind of these professional associations, right? So I'm being part of two associations, and and I've read about this a lot, right? And one of this, if I can suggest you a certain book called Thinking in Terms of Bets, right? So it's a book written by a poker champion about decisions, how they ruin our life or how they make our life, right? So even there, this has been spoke about a lot about the power of associations, right? So negative vibrations, or something like this, right? So where you should not be whining all the time, right? So again, why I'm being pointing out all these things is that, see, this is not how a community should be done, right? This is not going to be not just helping you, right? Because you're not alone there, right? You're not come here to get results for yourself, there are another 700, 800 people there, right? Each one of your posts is going to affect them, right? So because we all have these mind of where, one message can snowball a lot of things in our minds, right? So no whining or no negative vibes. Make use of this, the power of associations, right? There might be a lot of people here today as well, right? Being a part of this group, seeing other people and getting help from other people, some of them moved from their zone of comfort and achieved success, right? So let me ask you, if any one of you are here, right? So any one of you here who understood this, how this group has helped you in moving forward? This group system, no, this, you can even call it as a buddy system, right? So where you need to punish, right, if somebody's going against, and you need to reward people who are with you, right? So yes, we need to be making use of it to the full, right? And not abuse this, right? Not abuse the use of this, right? So here it's a place where you need to come and encourage people. And of course, valid questions, valid doubts is the place for it, right? So not something that is, going beyond this, something that is going beyond these rules here. If you have anything that is going beyond the rules, then probably you need to sit and understand these rules, right? Some of you might be thinking, not just this, right? So again, power of association also means that power of accountability, right? If you are going to be forming an accountability group, that is totally fine, right? So maybe your close friend, your wife, your spouse, or your close circle, inside your trust circle, form a group, right? A WhatsApp group to yourself, and tell them your goals, that this is all that I want to be doing. This is all that I want to be doing. And I'm going to be following the rules strictly for the next 100 trades. I'm going to be doing, and let me please be my accountability partner. And I'm going to be posting my results every day to you, right? So one or two, three people, you have close circle, trust circle, and do it, because you're accountable to do that. And you're not allowed to book profits. You're not allowed to do anything bending the rules. Even if you do, you need to be posting that, right? So if you're going to be bending the rules for 10 to 12 days, imagine what your wife or spouse will think about you, right? Do you understand the power of association, right? So when you're afraid of punishments, or when you're rewarded for good things, right? So this is emotional punishment and emotional rewards that you're gaining here, right? If you're going to be consistent, you'll be proud person or a proud husband to tell your wife that, I'm just following this flawlessly for so many number of days or so many number of months, right? If the other thing is true, you'll be ashamed to tell your wife that, every day I'm just, my mind goes off. I'm just in a mess. I'm just booking profits early, and I'm doing all of this stuff. And that is the punishment you're going to be giving yourself, right? So you need to be carefully choosing this accountability system, right? Accountability system is something that can make you, get all these bad habits out of the system, right? Power of association, power of accountability, right? So we need to make full use of that. And pillar number 6, how do we put these small things behind, right? How can we put this small things behind and move forward, is to have that big monstrous goal, right? So in school, usually, there's a thing that we have, right? So a thing that we usually discuss is something like this. People have this question of, how can you make a line smaller, right, without touching it? Is go next and draw a bigger line, right? So if we want to make these distress or drawdowns or small losses to look smaller, you need to have that big goal in your place, right? So that big goal is going to be that destination. Once you put in the destination, then after that only the path comes, right? So that is how we find our journey. That is how we can find our path towards that destination. So without that big goal, all that we are doing for no reason, right? There should be a very strong pulling reason for you to get up every day and go and do what you're doing, right? So get up every day, not just in trading, right? So whenever you get up in the morning, we need to feel happy about that goal, and we are going to be achieving that goal. And what can I do today to just move an inch closer to that goal, right? It's not going to be a journey where you go 4 inches and come back 10 inches, right? So every day, small inches is what going to be matter towards that big goal, right? So when you have that big goal in written or in writing or strongly in your mind, the small letdowns, the small setbacks are all not going to be of any kind of issue, right? So unless we have that, right? So all these things are going to be really mattering, right? So some of them will have a problem with slippages, some of them will have problem with enters execution error and all that, and they'll be thinking that can I do this for a very long time if I'm keeping on doing this execution error, or if the slippages are going to be coming, and maybe I'm not really sure of my how profitable is going to be, right? So if you have that monstrous goal, all of these little things, right? So our human mind has this tendency to pull you down all the time. And as we discussed already, right? So the moment you think you're going to give up the most, right? So at the peak, that is the moment you should understand that success is very, very close, right? So you need to have that big monstrous goal to keep moving forward, right? So, and that should be that goal that you look at every day and think that these are the little small things are not going to be mattering me, right? These small little things are not going to be putting me down, and I'm not going to be that weak person, right? That is going to be fall for these kind of little things and forget about my big goal, right? So this big goal is going to be our point where we understand there is always going to be a trade-off, right? So trading world is full of trade-offs, right? If you want to have a big goal, you need to make some sacrifices on the way, right? So that is the trade-off. And whenever you feel depressed, or whenever you feel this is not for me, you need to understand this is the little sacrifice that you're giving for that big goal, right? So without that, it is going to be a difficult journey if you're somebody who's just started in this journey of systematic trading, right? So we need to have that. And finally, again, there is no secret, right? So these are all not secrets. These are all things that are plain, simple, elementary, right? But just that it is there, we take it for granted, right? So we need to just take all of these things into our system, right? We need to take all of these things into our system, and there is no one secret to success, right? All that we need to have is that slight edge in each one of the things in this game, right? So there's no one single secret. If you can take your own your big idol and ask him, if what is your secret, right? So what is your one single secret? Probably there is nothing, right? There is a lot of things that add up to that personality, and that pushes them to success, right? So we need to build all of these things so that if you even take one thing away, right? Even if you take one thing away, it is not going to be making any kind of downfall for you, right? We need to have that system, or we need to have that edge in a lot of things around us, right? A lot of things inside our personality, inside our discipline, the way we look at the market, and everything should have a slight edge, so that even if one thing goes, we cannot be replaced, right? So this is what in professional systems they call it. You need to make yourself irreplaceable, right? If you are an expert at something, right, it is probably easy for somebody to find an expert at the same thing, and you can be easily be replaced, right? But if you have a slight edge in a lot of things, you become somebody who cannot be replaced, right? That is the exact thing that we need to be doing here, right? Something we need to become something that we cannot replace ourselves, right? So there is no one secret or one focus here. We need to be focusing on a lot of things, and we need to have the slight edge in all of these things, right? So the whole atmosphere is important. The belief systems lead to success, and our primary habits is what leads us to success, right? So this is about the mindset part, right? So what I'm going to be doing is